everyone, it's Barbara from Caring Arts, and I have another stress relief craft project for you. Today we're going to make paper pop art quilts based on four-letter words. Now these are all positive four-letter words. I made this one a few days ago based on the word love, but you can make one based on hope, sing, wish, any positive four-letter word you like. Today I'm going to make one for the word hope. I'm going to set this one aside for a moment, and I'm going to show you the materials you need. Now, first of all, for our background, we're going to need a 12 by 12 inch sheet of paper or cardstock. I'm using scrapbooking paper, which comes 12 by 12. You can use whatever you like. You can use cardboard, craft paper, wrapping paper, whatever you like. But the scrapbooking paper makes a great background. And then the other things you need, a scissors, some glue sticks, and sometimes I use the regular Elmer's glue as well. You're going to need a selection of markers. I like to use Sharpie markers. You will need a pencil and a ruler or a straight edge. And if you have it, we can make use of a CD because we're going to use that as a template to cut our squares. And then you need a selection of papers. And if you can find papers that are harmonious in color, that would be great. They can be all different patterns and solids. You can use wrapping paper, or you can paint paper. You can take white paper and put a pattern on it. So there's any number of ways to do it. And then any scraps of ribbon or buttons or anything of that nature that you have on hand, whatever you can find. This is about making use of materials we have on hand. So I'm going to move these aside and we're going to get started. So you can see from the project I created previously, we need 4 squares cut out of any type of paper you like. And again, if you can have harmonious colors, that works the best. I have a whole selection of papers here that I found that are a similar color palette, pinks and greens and turquoises and some brown. So I'm going to make use of those. And I like to take a CD to create these 5 by 5 inch squares, because that's the size that will fit 4 of them on our background paper. And a CD is 5 inches by 5.5. So we're just going to cut a 1/2 inch off that side. So I'm going to take a piece of paper here, and I'm going to put my CD on it. And I'm just going to, actually I'm going to use the back side so my pencil lines don't show. And I'm going to use my pencil and just draw around it. And now I have a 5 inch by 5.5 inch square. And when I cut that out, I'm going to cut off the roughly 1/2 inch on this side. But none of these have to be perfect. And I like to cut things with a jaggy edge. So I kind of go out of my way to make sure they aren't even remotely perfect. They're kind of jaggedy on the edge. It looks more natural to me, and it's hard to cut a perfectly straight line anyway. So this is kind of forgiving this way. So now I have a 5 inch by 5 inch square, and I'm going to need 4 of those. And I'm going to cut those out in different colors. One other thing that you can do instead of cutting, you can actually rip the paper so you get this interesting jagged edge. And you just want to take a straight edge to do that and just tear it that way. So instead of cutting it, you can also just rip the paper, and then you have an interesting edge. So I'm going to create 4 more of those, then I'll show you the next step. So I have my 4 squares cut out, and I've cut them out of different kinds of paper, different colored paper, but you can see they're all kind of harmonious colors. So the next thing is we need to arrange them on our background paper so that there's a border of color around and in between each one. And they don't have to be precise, but I'm just kind of loosely arranging them on the paper. And that's going to be my background squares, kind of like quilt squares. So the next thing to do is to cut out our letters. Now I'm going to do hope, so it's going to be H-O-P-E. And because this is kind of pop art, I like to mix capital and lowercase letters. They don't all need to be exactly the same. but you do need to make sure that the letters fit inside your square. So I like to use another 5-inch square that I cut out, and I'm just gonna trace, actually I'm gonna move these for the moment just so you can see better. I'm going to trace an H on this one, and it's going to be a very loose H, kind of a loose pop art style of lettering, just like that. And I'm going to cut that out and then just erase my pencil lines so you don't see those. And again, nothing has to be really precise, so you can see I'm loosely following the pencil line here, and the letter's not perfect. It doesn't need to be. In fact, if you're making an actual quilt cut from cloth, it wouldn't be absolutely perfect either. So there's my H, and then I also need to cut an O. Now for O especially, this is a very positive message. I like to cut hearts for O's. And I've cut this one out of my bright pink paper. It's actually two tones, so I could use the light pink as well. But I'm gonna do hearts within a heart. So I'm gonna cut a smaller heart to go inside that one. I've got some lighter pink paper. So to do that, I'm gonna trace my larger heart onto the paper. Using my pencil, and then I'm going to cut inside of that line about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch so that this light pink one fits inside the larger pink, hot pink one. And once again, it's not perfect. It doesn't need to be. So now I have a heart within a heart. And if you want to adjust it, you can cut a little more off. And that's going to be my O. So I have H-O. I forgot to erase my pencil lines here. So any pencil lines that are still showing, just erase those. And then it'll look perfect. Well, almost perfect, because we don't worry too much about perfect. I need a P, and I always want to make sure that my letters are going to work well with the background squares. So I'm going to do a little test here just to make sure this is working well. I've got my 4 squares. So my H is going to go inside this one. So you can see there's some really nice contrast. So the H stands out, and yet it ties in with this square here. So all these are going to tie together in a very harmonious way. And then here's my O, and I'm going to do something more to that, but you can see my heart is creating my O. And then I need a P for this square here. So I think I'm going to use this pink paper. It ties in with this one, and it'll show nicely against my brown here. So I need to draw out a letter P. I'm actually going to use my square, just kind of square it off to make sure it fits properly in there. And here's going to be my letter P. I'm going to make another capital letter here, and then I'm going to cut out my P. And you can see I didn't cut the hole out of the middle. Now you can do that, but I'm going to show you a really easy way. I'm going to take a bit of the brown that I had from before, and on the back of it here, I'm just going to draw a round circle. And that's going to be the hole for my P. And you can see it's a really easy way rather than try to cut out the inside of it. And there you go. We've got a P. And then we need an E. And I think I'm going to make a lowercase e. And I want something that's contrasting. So I think I'm going to use this turquoise color. And once again, kind of draw a square so my E fits inside. And I'm going to make a lowercase e here, just for fun. And again, it's very loose. And I'll just erase any pencil lines that I have showing before I glue everything down. There we go. I have my E. And once again, I could cut out a little hole out of this background paper, but I think I'm going to do something different. I happen to find something in my sewing box. I happen to find these fun little appliques, and they happen to match, so I grabbed those. Now you could use something like this, or buttons are fun. You could use anything like that. You could also cut out a flower out of a piece of paper and glue it down, but just because I had these, I'm going to make use of these, and I'm going to put two of them together. This is going to be my HOPE. So I think before I decorate these anymore, I'm going to glue them down, but we are going to decorate them more. This project can be very decorative. So I'm just going to remove all my letters and set them aside for a moment. And I'm going to paste down each of my squares. I'm just going to put some glue from my glue stick on the back of each square. I'm using a piece of scrap paper to do that. And I'm just going to glue them into place. And then you want to do that with each of your 4 squares. Just press them down so they're nice and flat. Just glue down each of the 4 squares. Now I've got my 4 squares glued down. Just rubbing them to make sure they're kind of, the glue's sticking and that they're kind of flat. And then next we want to glue down our letters. So I'm going to put those back just to see, so I can see where they go. And then I'm going to glue those down as well. So we've got our letters stuck down, and I just need the hole for the P and the hole for the E. So I'm going to take my glue stick and then for any 3-dimensional items, you might use like ribbon or like these appliques I just happen to have. I use the regular Elmer's glue. It just sticks a little better, so I'm going to stick a glob in the center here. I'm going to put my flower. And it's not perfectly flat, and that's okay. I'm letting the edges stick up a little. And then I'm just going to put a little more glue in the middle so I can put my other flower. Don't worry if you get a little extra glue because it does dry clear. And then I'm just going to let that dry. So now we want to decorate these a bit more because it's good with pop art to be very decorative. So I'm going to start using some of my markers. I have a blue marker here. And because this is kind of a quilt, sort of a fake quilt, I'm going to draw what looks like sewing marks around some of the areas. And they're just little dashes. So I'm going to do that around this H. That just gives a sense of this being a kind of quilt. And again, nothing is perfect here. It's all very harmonious when you finish, so you don't have to worry about any particular little element being perfect. And if you want, you could even add some more decoration to that H. You could put little dots for polka dots or stripes or whatever. I kind of like it that way. And then I'm going to take some of this cord I just happen to have, and I think I'm going to put that around my square. There's no rhyme or reason to this. You can decide as you go how much you want to continue to decorate this. But I think I'm going to take my glue and add some cord around the end here. Now, I just happen to have this cord. This is really all about using things you find in your closet or in your sewing basket, or just look around the house and find things that are fun and decorative. If you're making this for someone else, you might find elements that perhaps mean something to them. Just going to glue these down. And then I'm going to move on to my heart. And I think I'm going to add this little bit of lace that I happen to have. It was wider, and I cut it to be more narrow so it would be a little easier to work with. And I'm going to paste this around my inner heart, again using my Elmer's glue. And then I'm just going to glue this down all the way around the heart. Just like this. Got my lace pasted down. Probably needs to dry a little bit better. But I think I'm going to draw another heart on the inside. I'm going to use a blue and kind of tie it in. And I think I'm going to make this heart just a little bit cracked. So I'm putting just a little crack in the center. I'm going to color that in. Now I have my slightly cracked heart because this is about hope. We always have hope for healing. So I'm going to move on to my P here. I think I'm going to decorate this with the silver marker, which is going to show up nicely against this dark brown. And I'm going to put what look like sewing lines on the outside of the P. Now you can put them wherever you like, or you don't have to put them at all. But they do add a sense of this being a quilt. And that's kind of what we're doing with our 4 squares here. So the silver marker, which I just happen to have, shows up nicely. And then I'm going to do the same thing inside the hole of the P. So there, it gives a sense of that being sewn, even though obviously it isn't really being sewn. And then I'm going to take my blue again, and I'm going to do the same thing with those little sewing lines, this time around the outside of my last square here. Just so we're changing things up slightly. Each square is a little bit different, even though they do all tie together, both with color and with patterns and designs, so that at the end, the whole thing feels harmonious. Then I think I'm going to take my silver marker again, and I'm going to make a decoration around the outside, or actually kind of on the inside of my E, just to add some additional decoration. And again, you can do this with cut paper. You could cut out little, punch little dots out with a paper punch and make polka dots. You can make stripes. You can create these decorative elements however you like. It's all a matter of what you have on hand and what feels right at the moment, because this is about creating in the moment. If you have paint and you don't have markers, you can use paint. However you want to do this. There we go. And now all we have to do is pop it in a frame and give it to someone who needs a little hope in their life, and they'll love it.